Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
Would you want to live the same life over and over again 100 times over? What do you want to make out of your life? Who do you want to be? Look, life is short. You got what you got, and you really have to go for your own. And nothing will change unless you change. Guys, I'm helping men make that change at my intensive retreats in San Diego, California. Go to kfmretreat.com to learn more and be a part of a program that is transforming men's lives into the most powerful version of themselves. Again, that's kfmretreat.com. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Jonathan Levi. He's an entrepreneur, advisor, and angel investor, and has an unconventional MBA. He's got quite the story here. I think it's all gonna lift some eyebrows here. He's a life hacker, avid speed reader, animal lover, fitness enthusiast, amateur photographer, and a Silicon Valley native. All right, I am happy to have you here, Jonathan.
Thanks for having me. It's a great pleasure.
All right. And so, Jonathan, we kickstart off every show with a favorite success quote of the guest or some sort of saying that they've lived by. So go ahead and share with us what you got and then explain what that means to you.
Yeah, I'm going to give you an unconventional quote because I have a kind of unconventional view on success. It's a quote by Victor Hugo, and it goes, "The greatest happiness in life is the conviction that we're loved for ourselves, or rather loved in spite of ourselves." And that means a lot to me and has always meant a lot to me because I kind of at a young age struggled with who I was and being myself and kind of accepting this person that I'd become. And I think my process of becoming successful, if I can call myself that, the greatest success for me has been not only loving myself and loving what I do and loving who I am, but also finding people and surrounding myself with friends, family, and colleagues who love me for who I am. So I think that's really what I define as successful.
So it sounds like creating, having the right environment around you. Like that's what's really important to you.
Well, environment and mindset, right? Okay. It's like you can be very successful by traditional means, but if you don't have the right mindset to look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know, I'm happy with who I am and I'm happy with what I'm doing and I'm inspired by my work and surroundings, then, you know, it's all for naught.
I like that. And this gives us a little taste of who you are, but let's dive deeper now. Let's go into your story of kind of how you got started with what you do, building businesses, becoming an angel investor, and with your unconventional MBA, and you know, just share with us your unconventional life, I guess it is.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead, take the mic. What do you got for us?
Yeah, so growing up, I kind of didn't really have a role model of a salaried employee. So early on in my life, both my parents kind of struck out on their own and did their own small businesses. So from, I think, around the age of 4, I thought that, you know, anytime you needed money to buy something, you just started a business. So I started, you know, quote unquote businesses with my friends, selling handmade goods and stuff like that. And that kind of continued. I was doing some Beanie Baby speculation. Around age 12, I was doing DJing, parties and stuff like that. I did some web design. Nothing really was successful, but I learned a lot of, you know, business lessons by running these kind of failing little enterprises. Then along about 16, I started a luxury car parts company selling BMW parts on the internet, of all things. And that company kind of grew and grew and grew and grew just based on, you know, the web design fundamentals and the business fundamentals and service skills that I'd learned with the past businesses. So I kind of grew that company, ran it while I was going to Berkeley, got a BA there, and then a year and a half or so after, at 23, couple weeks after my 24th birthday, actually, I sold the company. And that's when I started doing angel investing, came out to Israel, started doing some work with VCs. From there, decided, it'd be really fun to get an MBA. It's always something that I wanted to do. So got my MBA from INSEAD in France and Singapore. And then since then, I've been doing just a lot of small projects. I kind of have resolved myself that I don't need to be doing a large business, venture-backed business to be happy. So I teach courses on Udemy, which is actually how I discovered you, and teach courses. I just launched a blog and a podcast. I advise, as you said, a number of startups, and just really have a lot of small side projects, software business and real estate business, and a lot of small things that make up the day.
So was there ever a point in your career where maybe early on when you were thinking about, because a lot of things weren't working, were you ever just thinking about, hey, maybe I should just get a job? And
Definitely. At one point, I tried to get a job at Jamba Juice, but I was about 30 minutes late to the interview, so that didn't work out. And then I tried to get a job at Togo's, which is kind of like
sandwich like
shop,
a Subway,
right?
kind of, yeah.
Yeah, they told me I wasn't Togo's material, so I said to hell with it. I'll just start my own business.
It does take some time. It takes the right type of person to be Togo's material.
Right, definitely. So I went home and started a $3 million business. But since then, since the MBA, I've actually tried to do some work with startups here in Israel. Specifically, I'm really interested in the base of the pyramid. So 4 billion people living on less than $2 a day. But, it's kind of, I've positioned myself in this kind of mindset and also skill set where I don't necessarily fit into the cookie cutter as a payroll employee. So it's much easier for myself and for companies I work with to just have me on as a consultant or advisor. I also teach a course on productivity. So I do in 1 or 2 hours what someone might do in a work day. And so that's worked out really well for me. And, I like to have so many different projects. I'm working on a book as well. So it fits really well for me.
Yeah, it sounds like you're working on so many different things. And even from a young age, like you're like speculating on Beanie Babies. Now you said you got real estate, you got online courses, you're working on a book. There's a ton of different projects you're working on. So I guess we can transition into productivity, but like, how do you find the time to do all these projects and still be successful at them?
Yeah, so couple things there. One is kind of the reason I do this is I'm a big believer in Rich Dad Poor Dad and the kind of Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week stuff. So I try to have many sources of income and also many sources of satisfaction, right? So my software company, I hope none of my customers are listening, but it's super boring, and unless we're developing new products, which we do once a year, the rest of the time it's pretty humdrum, just working with customers, fixing bugs, stuff like that. So I don't draw inspiration from there, but working on a book or working on courses, that's really exciting and inspiring. To answer your question, how do I find the time? I break things down into really small pieces, which is good. And I'm becoming increasingly good at delegating. On my Udemy course, my partners are really good about answering questions. So that doesn't take up really any time. The real estate stuff is all on autopilot. The software stuff, for the most part, is on autopilot. The book, I have a really awesome editor. So, I put in the initial work, and I've become a lot better in the last year at outsourcing and delegating and trusting, which I think is a lesson I learned when I was running a big business, that, you have to trust your sales rep. You have to trust your order operations people, because at some point you can't do it by yourself. You start hiring. And then for a while, I failed to take that lesson and apply it to my smaller businesses. But I'm starting to understand, I just launched my podcast, and I'm trusting someone else to do all the graphics work and trusting someone else to do all the editing. And so it allows me to get a lot more done. And then, like I said, I'm just really, really ruthless about productivity. And I have all kinds of hacks and stuff that help me get through email faster, help me schedule meetings faster, cut down wasted time.
Is this like software that you're using, or what are some of these hacks?
Yeah. So actually, funny story, I built a course on Udemy about it recently, but I use a lot of shortcuts. I write a lot of like different scripts and stuff like that will automate things. And it's 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. For example, I use a software called IFTTT, or IFT, I think they prefer it to be called. So anytime someone buys something from my software company, that would normally be a 10-minute process of writing an invoice, recording it in our accounting, stuff like that, filing it, calculating how much I need to pay out to the installation tech and stuff like that. I have that all run through IFTTT automatically. So, it's like 10 minutes every time we make a sale, which can save me a lot of time in a week. And it's just different hacks like that, and a lot of mindset hacking as well, right? So I notice you and I do the same thing. If I want to schedule a meeting with somebody, well, that's like 4 or 5 emails back and forth. You and I both do this thing where we send someone a link and say, look, I'm sorry, this is really impersonal, but here are all the times I'm available. Just pick something, and it just pops up on your calendar. So that's right there, 10 minutes that I save at least 5 times a day.
That scheduling tool for me, I used to spend like a quarter of my day was literally just emailing people back and forth and scheduling something with working with the guy's assistant or whatever it was. But it can be a nightmare too when someone's international and like you're trying to figure out like the right time and you're doing the time difference and then you do it wrong. And it's like when you have a tool just to do that for you, send them a link. It's just, and then you create your own schedule on that. I mean, we're totally just promoting Schedule Once right now.
I'm actually using Doodle, but I like your system more. I might switch to it when they get iCloud integration. But the last point I'll make is I'm also I'm really, really ruthless. And this comes from, again, the experience of running my business. Because at some point I realized, I close really, really well. If I get on the phone with a customer, I can make the sale and stuff like that. But at some point you have to really think intelligently. And I'm very fortunate that I was in a group called the Entrepreneurs Organization at that time. So there were a lot of people who'd been in business running their own companies for 20, 30 years who kind of mentored me. And they convinced me, look, you need to be very, very pragmatic about what it is and is not worth your time, right? So I sound like such a princess when I say this, but is it really worth my time to do my own laundry or clean my own apartment when it costs, I can get my laundry done for $20 every 10 days, right? So if it takes me an hour and a half and it's a mental headache and stuff like that, and it pulls me away from my productive hours during the day, is it really worth the $20? Another example, do I really need to be editing my own podcast, or can someone else do a better job and charge me, $30, $40 an episode? So I'm ruthless, and I just think about what are the 20% of things that I should be doing that quality is really, really important on, and what are the 80% that are not? I mean, when we were coordinating this interview, I had my assistant email you, because while I want to be here on the interview, and this is really important, high value stuff, the scheduling part, and kind of liaising with you about what we're going to talk about is not, and he can just send me a summary. So he just told me, look, you have an interview at 9:00 on the 11th. Easy, right?
Right. What you said was actually really, really powerful. It's like someone can do your laundry for $20. Someone can edit your podcast. Someone can probably even, make you food, like cookie food, which it sounds like you said princess, which kind of makes you feel that way, right? But what's the dollar amount that you make per hour? Like, how much do you want to make per hour? And if you say I want to make $100 an hour or more, whatever it is, then you possibly can't be doing your laundry when you could pay someone $20 an hour. I think like that type of thinking, it's like, hey, like this is how much I'm worth, and if I can pay someone even just $15 less than what I'm worth, then it's worth it for me to ship that out and have someone who's a professional get that done.
Exactly. And let me tell you, my laundry smells awesome. My laundry's never smelled so good.
Yeah, you're like, how do they do it? I could never get it to smell that good.
I don't even know. So yeah, it's it's a matter of, and I don't want to advocate that everyone think of things in terms of dollars and cents. I don't want people to be sitting at dinner with their family and be like, oh, this is costing me $100 plus the meal.
Yeah, that was my next question. I was like, well, how do you how do you think about like this with your personal life?
So I have a couple of different hacks there, which I'm a little bit ashamed to admit. One is that I have this kind of concept that I was taught also in the Entrepreneurs Organization. It's called the Wheel of Life. The idea is you have this wheel with 8 sections, one for friends and family, one for finance, one for career, health, spiritual growth, fun and adventure, whatever. The idea is that you always nurture 2 at a time. So, if you and I are going to hang out, Andrew, I'm not going to say, hey, let's go drink some beer and watch a movie. I'm going to say, Andrew, why don't we go for a run, or why don't we go to this concert, right? So it's also improving health if it's the run, or it's also improving, kind of personal growth if we go see a museum or a show or something like that. It's kind of fun and adventurous. So I'm nurturing different aspects of my life that are important at once, right? Instead of kind of like sitting on the couch drinking a beer. But the other thing is, like, you have to realize, and I think about this a lot, I only have so many hours a day that I can really be productive. So one of the things people always ask me, I teach speed reading and accelerated learning, and they're like, great, you read 800 words a minute, so that's a 300-page book in 2 hours, 2.5 hours. You must read a book every day. I'm like, not really, because after that 2 hours, I'm spent. That's all my kind of mental cognitive capacity for the day burnt. So for me, I can work like 4 or 5 hours a day solid. And then after that, I just can't. So, that's when I study languages or spend time with friends, building relationships, stuff like that. And I think it's okay to apply that productivity mindset to your personal life if you expand your idea of what productivity means. So is it productive for me to sit with friends who I admire and whom I aspire to be like? Right? So surrounding yourself with the right people. Is it productive to build and develop those relationships? Definitely. Is it productive when you spend time around people who teach you things, who expose you to new ideas? Definitely. It may not be productive in the traditional sense of output, but it's definitely creating value. And, it's not that I think about these things in the moment while I'm right there sitting with a friend, but I've learned to kind of think about how value is being created in my life. And that's also been a thing that I've really been ruthless about in the last year or two, really, is surrounding myself with people who add value in my life, because then your interactions with them are productive.
Regardless of what you're doing sometimes.
Exactly. And I also find when you're with the right kind of people, they're not advocating for like, let's smoke a bunch of pot and watch movies. It's kind of like, we're going to this political debate and here's what's going on. You should come.
Yeah, really cool. How you kind of just like brushed through it, but you said 800 words per minute you're reading. How do you do that, and how did you get to that point? I'm sure. Yeah. I know it's a whole course to go through how to read faster, but maybe what are some big ahas that you had that helped you read maybe even just an extra 100 words faster?
Sure, I'll break it down for you. So this backstory goes, when I was at the venture capital office, I kind of met someone who turns out he's an expert, and his wife is one of the most renowned teachers in the country of accelerated learning. So she's a university professor out here. And I kind of saw what he was able to do and was blown away and didn't believe that it was possible. So I hired his wife to tutor me private sessions, which was not cheap, but came very, very much in handy when I went to go get my master's degree. In any case, 800 words a minute, by the way, makes me, as far as speed readers go, a total slouch. One of my tutors is about 2,000 words a minute. Record holders are in the 5,000 to 10,000. So 800 it's 4 times faster than your average college graduate reads in their native language, but it's not that fast, and I don't claim to be really that fast at all. How does it work? The speed reading stuff is actually the simple part. The hard part is training your mind to create memories and store them logically at that speed. But the speed reading stuff is just a matter of controlling the number of fixations your eye makes. So instead of moving your eye 10 times per line on a page, you move it 2 to 3 times, because you're functionally blind when your eyes are in motion. You don't have focus, and so you're not absorbing information. So all that time that your eyes are moving is wasted. From there, you just expand the range of your kind of, it's not peripheral vision, but the range of your focal depth, and you can take in more information. So I can look at a line on the left side about a centimeter away, or sorry, half an inch away from from the column, and then the right side about half an inch away from the column. And I can pick up that entire line in 2 fixations. And from there, it's traditional memory stuff, which I talk a lot in the course and podcast about. So converting all of your memories to visual. So any piece of information I read is instantly converted to a visual memory. You tell me you're going to Brazil, I have a picture of Brazil and a picture of you in Brazil. So that information is encoded visually.
Wow. So are you able to retain all the information is what I'm wondering. When we say a guy can read, 3,000 words per minute, like, is this guy able to recite, the important facts about what he just read?
Right. So on average, people actually retain 40%. So if you're reading, it's sub-vocalizing. So one important thing I forgot to mention is when you're reading it, anything above really like 400, 500 words a minute, you're not sub-vocalizing, which means you're not hearing the words anymore in kind of your mind's voice. You're picking them up as symbols. So I show you a picture of a dog. You don't think, oh, dog, golden retriever, puppy, running. You just get the meaning, right? Instantly from that photo. That's what happens when you speed read. So I'm getting a group of 4 to 5 words that say the quick brown fox, and I just, boom, have an image of the quick brown fox. So you're skipping that whole step. When you eliminate that, you actually increase your attention, right? Because you're retaining the high quality of that visual information. You're not degrading it by turning it into auditory information, right? So if you try to play back the sentence that I just said, right, you wouldn't remember word for word because auditory information is really lousy. Whereas if I picked a picture up, showed it to you for 1 second, and then asked you to describe it to me, you'd tell me in vivid detail all the colors and shapes and all that great stuff, right? So in any case, retention goes up until you hit about 1,000 words a minute and then starts to degrade. But someone who reads at about 1,000 to 1,200 words a minute can easily retain 80%, which is significantly higher than most people when they subvocalize.
Wow, that's incredible.
Right, it's kind of it's like free productivity and time saving with no kind of cost.
Wow. And now, a busy day like yourself, busy guy like yourself, and doing and working on so many projects, do you have any hacks around sleeping?
Yeah, actually, I was just going to mention that. So I've experimented a lot with polyphasic sleep. I talk about it in one of my courses that I've never tried any of this Uberman, 20-minute naps, 6 20-minute naps. That's a bit extreme for me. I'm a pretty avid practitioner of the everyman schedule. So I'll sleep usually 6 hours in the night and 20 minutes during the day, which saves me, if you think about it, an hour and 10 minutes, kind of by my calculation, or no, more. Let's call it an hour and a half of savings.
All right.
And just kind of is like a hard reset in the middle of my day. So I find that there's a lot of evidence that we are in fact biphasic sleepers. The fact that everyone, everywhere, regardless of diet, regardless of age, regardless of fitness, can describe that 2 o'clock slump, it says something, right? It says something about our physiology. And if you look at human history, before we had electric lighting, right, and before we had kind of the industrial era, people were sleeping twice a day. So you go, I had the opportunity to go to Napoleon's office in Fontainebleau in France, right? And the guy had like a very small bed by his desk. And you see this in a lot of like really high performing people. So I'm a big believer in the power nap in the middle of the day, which I combine with kind of like a meditative session to just kind of reset, get my mind back. And, one of the things that I tell my students, which is kind of substantiated by recent research, is the more actively you're using your mental faculties, the brain creates byproducts and waste. The brain being it consumes 20% of your body's energy. It's the single biggest hog of resources in your body. And like your muscles, although it's not a muscle, it creates waste, and that waste can degrade the performance over time. The only time it can clear is when you sleep. So taking a nap in the middle of the day, especially when you've been studying or working on something where you're intently focused, allows you to really quickly, not completely, but somewhat clear out those chemicals, and that's why, you're so refreshed. With that said, I always try never to sleep more than 25 minutes, because that's when you start to dip a little bit deep, and you wake up feeling worse. A lot of people, when I tell them I nap every day, they tell me, oh, I always wake up feeling worse. That's because they're sleeping 45 minutes, waking up in the middle of a sleep cycle, just completely groggy. All the melatonin is still coursing through their veins and telling them, you're tired, stay in bed, right?
Right. Yeah, so the power nap. The power nap is real. One other thing I wanted to touch on before we dive into the knowledge round is just like, I'm looking at your site here. I'm looking at all the diversification of different industries and different, courses and programs that you've created. A lot of it is on the whole passive income stream idea, which you kind of talked about with like the rich dad, poor dad mentality. Can you elaborate more on this and why you really?
Yeah, I'd love to actually. I wrote a blog about this, and I've put a lot of thinking into it. So my thinking and background in it is a combination of Robert Kiyosaki's and Tim Ferriss's stuff. And the idea is basically that if you're working for money, right, no matter how highly skilled you are, whether you're a brain surgeon or a lawyer or whatever it may be, if you're working for money, eventually you reach this limit, right? So I can be a lawyer making $550 an hour, but at some point there's only so many hours in the day, right? So I've reached this limit. And also it kind of sucks to work. So every one of my businesses that failed, I learned something. Running a car parts company, I learned that it's really not super fun to ship products around the world. So we were shipping to 97 countries, and UPS would love to break our stuff. We get angry customers, and it's really not fun to have to deal with that. So that led me towards software, where there's no shipping process, there's no logistics, there's no damage. And, a lot of other business failures that I had, and failure can be defined more broadly than just the business not working. It can be, I was working 120-hour weeks and didn't have time for social life. I mean, that's a form of failure. These failures taught me that not all businesses are created equal. So I'll often look at different kinds of businesses, or, everyone has that one friend who says we should open a bar. And I'm like, absolutely not, because it's a lot of work. It's a very difficult business. And you can do things like Udemy courses or podcasts where you're enjoying creating the content and all that great stuff, and it delivers itself. It's automated. There's no kind of customer service really involved. So that's my thinking. Basically I realize I've gone on a total ramble here, but I want to create assets that generate income, whether that's courses, whether that's real estate, whether that's podcast episodes. The idea is to put value into any form of asset, even a book, writing music, stock photography, any of that stuff, putting in value and then creating a system that allows the value to deliver itself. One other point I'll add is, I say in my blog post, the point of passive income is not to sit on a beach and do nothing. It's to have options, right? When I decided I want to work on mobile solutions in Africa, and this was a company that was raising money, I was able to come in and say, look, you guys don't have to pay me. Like, I just want to come, I want to learn, I want to hang out, I'm enjoying the work, and we'll worry about that later, right? That's not an option that I would have if I had to work for money, and if there was a relationship between my time worked and money earned. So those things are only available to me because I have this freedom and because I generate all of my income now passively.
So it allows you to really focus on what you want to focus on without having to have the pressure of paying your bills and what you're worth.
Exactly. And I mean, I traveled 10 weeks last year. I didn't work too much, I guess. I mean, my too much is probably, I definitely don't work a 40-hour week, let's put it that way. And, I take time, I learn languages, I hang out, I exercise every single day. So like, I have really, really complete control over my time, and I wouldn't sacrifice that. I mean, if you told me, if I got a job offer from McKinsey, right? So working 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day, you offered me, I don't know, $1 million a year, I wouldn't take it. There's no price on freedom. You really can't put a price on freedom over your time.
Freedom of your life.
Right. It's like, and also, I don't know, I had this realization not long ago, which I hope doesn't upset people who hear it, but I was thinking to myself, right, if a company is paying you for your time, they wouldn't pay you unless they were making a profit off that time, right? So you work at an accounting firm, or say you're a doctor, you work for a large hospital, right? You're billing $1,000 for a surgery, and the hospital's making $2,000. So by definition, if you're receiving a paycheck, you're kind of like you're getting less than your worth on the market, theoretically. I don't know if it plays out in actuality, but I don't know, it kind of bothers me. Something about that bothers me a little bit. And, that's why I think it's so incredible that we live in an age where maybe not if you're a surgeon, but if you're a lawyer, it's easier than ever to set up your own practice. If you want to consult people, it's easier than ever to be a one-man startup consulting agency. Almost, most professions, you can really make inroads to being more independent than ever before.
That'd be a good debate right there.
Right. I'm sure there aren't many freelance surgeons.
Right. Because, the hospital provides kind of the patients.
Right. But then again, the instance of private practice, right? So private nutritionists, private physiotherapists, it indicates exactly this, where, someone gets a degree in kinesiology and gets certified as a physical therapist and then says, why the hell should I go work for Kaiser, when I'm going to get this salary, when if I just put in a little bit of work, build my own client base, I can make this much more. That reminds me of actually one of the things Robert Kiyosaki says. He tells the story about, you're going to end up testing my knowledge of this book that I read 6 years ago, but I believe it's a Singaporean woman who comes up and asks him, you've been so successful, teach me how to write like you. And he looks at some of her manuscripts and says, actually, you write a lot better than me. The difference is I know how to market myself and you don't. And she's like completely appalled and offended,
Yeah, she says, he says the difference between you and me is I'm a best-selling author and you're a best writing author, something like that, where it's like she knows how to write, but he knows how to sell.
Exactly. And at some point you have to acknowledge that you're good enough at your trade. Diversify your skills, right? I realized pretty early on, like, I'm not going to be an awesome web developer, but I know enough, right? I know enough to put up my site by myself for the podcast, and I know enough to like design a little microsite for my courses and stuff like that. And so at that point I was like, great, I know enough at this point, time to move on to the next skill, right? Time to learn how to market myself, time to learn how to be a public speaker. And Tim Ferriss has this quote that I really love in one of his mini podcasts where he says, specialization is for insects. It's like, don't be the worker ant who all you do is transport leaves, right? Like, be a rounded individual who can do every aspect of the project, right? Which isn't to say like I'm filing my own taxes, but I know enough about every aspect of the different businesses that I run that I can get involved.
Where do you think that idea plays with mastery?
Mastery of a skill, mastery of
a skill. Like if you get good enough and then move on to the next, then what is the relationship with mastery and that idea?
That's a great question. I think about this a lot because I love to learn languages, right? And I speak Spanish fairly well, Hebrew very well, Russian not so well. But I'm now at a point where I've decided, I want to live in Israel. I want to be able to engage in political debate in Hebrew. I want to be able to read anything, right? And so I'm now at a point where I've decided that mastery is, at this point in my life, valuable. So I think it's a case by case, right? I looked at programming and decided that mastery is not at all interesting to me. Even speed reading, which is a topic I teach, I'm not ashamed to admit that I'm not a master. I know more than most. I certainly know enough to teach it, but I'm not, like I said, a world record speed reader. And I think you have to look at that 80-20, that kind of Pareto's law, and say like, am I willing to put in the additional 80% of the work. And it usually plays out to be that. Am I willing to put in the 80% of work to know virtually every vocabulary word in this language, or to know all the ins and outs of how this programming language functions in every tiny little instance or situation? So it's a case by case. It's certainly a case by case. And I would argue you could then again apply the 80-20 rule, because 80% of the skills you learn, right? At some point you learned how to converse with people, or you learned how to do these basic skills that you certainly don't need to be a master of, right? We're not all Bill Clinton. We don't know how to work a room the way he does. But the difference is, again, coming back to the Kiyosaki thing, like we've chosen to be jack of all trades, and Bill Clinton, his life's work was to be able to inspire people with charisma, right? So that's a skill he needs to master. You and I don't need to master it. We need to be very good at it.
I think it's a really good discussion. Let's now move into the knowledge round. So I'll just ask you some rapid fire questions, probably just a few here. So Jonathan, are you ready for the knowledge round?
Yeah, sure.
We were all born completely unique. Your DNA has never occurred in the past and will never occur again in the future. This fact makes you unique, and there's a purpose behind this. There's a reason behind all of this. You have some great purpose that you need to fulfill for being here, and it's a shame if that purpose never comes alive and it goes into the graveyard, the richest land in the world. Don't let that be you. Create the life of your dreams, break through and reach your full potential. Check out how my retreats can transform your life and light a fire inside of you to go after your dreams and become the best man that you can be. Go to kfmretreat.com to learn more and apply. Again, that's kfmretreat.com. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime. First question here, Jonathan. What advice would you give to someone who's feeling kind of lost or unsure of what they should do or unsure of their purpose?
Just do something. I find that motion in any direction is better than stagnation.
All right. Nice and simple. And Jonathan, was there anything that was holding you back from becoming the man you are now today?
Yeah, I think my own mindset. It always comes back to your own mindset, right? If you are positive and radiating positive energy and kind of optimistic, it's much easier to do what you aspire to do. If you're negative and bound by fear, that's going to hinder anything and everything you try to apply your efforts to. The biggest hack you can do is one of hacking your mindset and hacking your approach to life and your attitude.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And now this should be a challenging question for you since you can read 800 words per minute, but what are your 3 most influential books and why?
Oh, easy question, actually. One of the first books that really had an impact on me as a young adult was something that a mentor and kind of very important figure in my life gave me, which is Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Love that book. Just a brilliant manuscript. Really, really simple, kind of almost patronizing how simple it is, but timeless classic on just how to interact with people and how to treat them. Second book, Tim Ferriss' 4-Hour Workweek, just because it opened me up to the idea. At the point that I read it, I was working 100-hour weeks, skipping classes to run my business, and not really making an exceptional amount of money for the sacrifice. And it exposed me to the idea that I could detach hours worked from money earned, and also that I didn't have to have a quote-unquote job that I could tell people about at cocktail parties. Like something I struggle with every day. People ask me what I do, and I have 10 different side businesses that I'm running. Like I just say I'm an entrepreneur, and like I don't need the ego of saying I run a X million dollar business. So that's number 2. Number 3, I'm going to give you a more recent one. I recently read Peter Thiel's 0 to 1, and a little bit hypocritical because I'm here advocating for like run smaller businesses and detach your ego and like lifestyle and all that stuff. But he has some really interesting insights on what it's going to take to bring humanity to the next level. And I think if and when I'm ready to invest that kind of time and effort again, a lot of his thinking is going to guide me, just around paradigm shifting ideas and kind of the boldness or chutzpah to like question the most basic constructs of our society and how things work.
Yeah, I still think it could equally be applied into smaller businesses. I mean, it's really just opening up your mind to what's really possible out there. But I actually listened to that book, and it was really eye-opening. If anyone's interested in picking up one of these books for free, they can go to kfmbook.com. And now, John, next question I have for you is more of a scenario, actually. So imagine you had 60 seconds with your 20-year-old self. What would you tell him to do, and what would you tell him not to do?
60 seconds. I would not try to change anything that he was going to do. What I would say is be a little bit kinder to yourself. Don't be so hard on yourself. And I'd probably give a reading list. Really, in truth, my all-time most life-changing book was Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. So I'd probably hand him a copy of that. And I'd say, if you're ready for this, it's going to resonate with you. And if you're not, that's fine. You're going to discover it in a few years anyway. I'd probably recommend that he start meditating. And I might steer him away from one or two women whose paths I probably would have been better not to have crossed. But that's it. I don't think I'd change it.
Yeah.
In terms of like career or avoiding mistakes or anything like that. I probably wouldn't even steer away from the particular young lady in question.
Yep. Common response there with a woman for most guys here on the show.
Right. It just would have saved a lot of heartache,
a lot of time, a lot of pain. But sometimes that's a lot of money. Yeah, I bring that up. Sometimes that's just kind of what makes us stronger. And in the end, now, moving forward to the last question here, just maybe even a reflection here of some of your main points. But what would you say is your philosophy on like life and success?
So I give a lecture on failure to like different startup communities. And I really like this lecture because I spend 10 minutes talking about all the ways that I failed, if not more. I spend another 20 minutes advocating for failure and explaining why failing is the best learning methodology and trying different things and failing small, how you should fail faster, fail harder, stuff like that. The takeaway at the end of the lecture is this. I say there's only one kind of failure in life that you shouldn't accept, and that's the failure to construct a life that you find to be satisfying. So, and I think that says a lot about my life philosophy, that really the only failure I won't take on the chin is not loving what I do and not waking up enjoying what I'm going to be working on that day, and just kind of being miserable, because I've been there. I was there, when I was very young, and I had this depressive period. And I think to me, that's the ultimate form of failure. It's the only kind of failure that I don't think is productive.
Yeah, I think that really resonates with me too. I like that. Now, Jonathan, that concludes the knowledge round. What's exciting you today? Like, what are you looking forward to when you wake up?
So I just launched this podcast, which I have to give you credit for because I really enjoyed your Udemy course. And I'm just excited about that, and not so much because of the income earning potential or the ego boost of, people listening to an hour of me blabbing a week. But I've had this opportunity to interview just amazing and really interesting people, which I'm completely honest about. That's my motive, right? Is just to have awesome conversations with really, really cool people and to learn. And if I can share that learning with other people, potentially thousands or tens of thousands of people, that's super exciting. The other thing that's really motivating me is I get a lot of messages and emails from students of my Udemy course who maybe have some kind of difficult circumstances. So, I've had some kind of brain damage, have had severe attention deficit, dyslexia, stuff like that. And it seems, this isn't how we engineered the course, but it seems that the course is actually really, really effective at helping people overcome some of these learning disabilities. And to me, that is so exciting because what we teach is not rocket science. It's very sophisticated learning methodologies, but they're thousands of years old, right? The Greeks have been using similar learning techniques. And so just the idea that we can revive and create this renaissance around the way we learn is really exciting to me, especially as somebody who didn't excel in the traditional sit in a lecture situation, right? It was very hard for me to sit through 2 decades of formal education. So I don't know. Those are 2 things that really excite me.
That's really good. And I obviously, like, I love that you took the course of the podcast blueprint and launched your podcast today. It launched today.
Today.
That's incredible. I'm glad to have been able to help you in some way on the creation of your podcast. Yeah, that's going to conclude the outro. But the blog that you have, let me go ahead and plug your blog.
Sure. So the blog we just launched today is called Becoming Superhuman. It's at becomingaSuperhuman.com. Make sure you have the A in there. And then on there, you'll find links to the courses. You'll find some links to me, information about me, anything you might be curious about. And, we have the podcast, the blog, all that good stuff.
All right. Jonathan, thank you so much for your time, sharing your story and some of your, big life lessons that you've learned on your journey. So thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me. It was such a pleasure chatting with you, Andrew.
All right. I'll put a cut there.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and 1 million downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement, and we've just started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a review in iTunes. It really helps to grow the podcast. Guys, 2015 is the official year of living with purpose, where every day you do only the things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. Check out kfmfree.com to get free tools I've created to help you crush life. Again, that's kfmfree.com. This is your host, Andrew Fairby, and I'll see you in the next episode.